South Africa's government's body puts the immigrant population at just 3 million, but your organisation puts that figure at around 15 to 30 million. That's a pretty big gap. How do you explain that? How do you explain that?
Our government doesn't have an idea of how many people are in the country.
She is right about one important point. South Africa does not know the exact number of undocumented migrants. But does that uncertainty support an estimate of 15 to 30 million? We tested the evidence she used to justify that figure. At the highest end, the difference is 27 million people. South Africa's total population is now estimated at approximately 63.5 million. 15 million would be almost one person in every 4. 30 million would be close to one person in every 2. Either South Africa's official statistics are missing a population on an extraordinary scale, or one of the most powerful numbers in the migration debate has no reliable foundation. Jacinta Ngobese-Zuma offers 3 reasons for rejecting the official estimate. She points to almost 1 million refugee applications. She says more than 400,000 people were stopped at the border in one season. And she attributes the range of 15 to 30 million to a former Statistician-General. We tested all 3. And during that search, we found the exact 15 to 30 million range in a major international report. But it was not describing South Africa. The figure of more than 3 million comes from Statistics South Africa's latest migration report. Using the 2022-2023 Income and Expenditure Survey, Stats SA estimated that immigrants accounted for approximately 5.1% of South Africa's population. Census 2022 produced a lower figure of about 2.4 million immigrants, or 3.9% of the population. The figures differ because they come from different data sets, time periods and estimation methods. But this is the distinction the interview does not make clear. Stats SA's population count is not limited to people holding legal immigration documents. The census attempts to count everyone present in the country, including undocumented migrants. It records characteristics such as birthplace and citizenship. It does not decide whether each person has lawful status. Jacinta's estimate, however, is presented as a count of undocumented migrants alone. The interview is therefore placing 2 different categories beside each other as though they are competing answers to the same question. They are not. There is also an important truth inside Jacinta's criticism. South Africa does not know the exact number of undocumented migrants. Stats SA has repeatedly said it has not produced such an estimate. Some people avoid surveys. Others enter legally and overstay. Some cross outside official ports. Others move frequently or appear in incomplete administrative systems. So the honest answer is not that government knows the precise number. It does not. But unknown is not another word for 30 million. A population of 15 million would represent approximately 24% of everyone living in South Africa. 30 million would represent approximately 47%. A population of that magnitude would not only affect one survey, it should leave enormous and broadly consistent signals across housing, employment, consumption, transport, school enrollment, healthcare use, and other independent data sets. That does not mean every undocumented person would appear neatly in government records. It means an additional population approaching half the country would require far more evidence than community observation alone. Listen to Jacinta.
And those statistics that we have are from people who've submitted it to us via a service provider network, and it's widely spread. I'm sure you can also find that on the internet somewhere.
A service provider network may collect valuable local information. It may reveal overcrowded buildings, employers avoiding labour laws, or communities experiencing rapid demographic change. But the interview provides no published sampling method, national coverage calculation, system for removing duplicate records, or formula, explaining how the submissions became an estimate of 15 to 30 million. Without that methodology, the submissions may prove that communities are concerned. They cannot prove the size of the national undocumented population. Here, Jacinta.
Currently, even the number of refugee applications out there are sitting at a million applications alone.
The closest official records matching that figure were published by Home Affairs and Parliament. They contained more than 1.3 million asylum and refugee records. But they were not 1.3 million pending applications. The records included approximately 81,086 active asylum cases, 828,404 inactive asylum records, 113,007 recognised refugee records, 311,677 closed cases. A closed case is not a pending application. A recognised refugee has already received a decision. An inactive record relates to someone whose asylum documentation was not renewed and whose present status or location may not be known. Only about 81,000 in that official breakdown were classified as active asylum cases. So, the interview's interpretation is inaccurate. The million-plus figure did not represent 1 million people waiting for their first decision. But the records expose a serious government failure. Home Affairs reported hundreds of thousands of inactive cases and acknowledged that it did not know the whereabouts of many of the people attached to them. That does not prove 30 million undocumented migrants. It does demonstrate why the public may distrust the state's ability to track migration. Listen to Jacinta.
In the beginning of the year, they stopped about 400,000 plus entries into the country at one go. In one season. So how is it possible that in one entry point in one season, you can be able to do that?
The official festive season figures do not support that number. Between December 2025 and January 2026, the Border Management Authority reported intercepting 26,152 people attempting unlawful entry or being found inadmissible. During the previous festive season, the figure was 58,394. The much larger figure was cumulative. The BMA reported more than 530,000 interceptions from July 2022 to January 2026. That covers approximately 3.5 years, not one season. There is another statistical problem. An interception measures movement at the border. It is not a count of residents inside South Africa. Someone stopped at the border was prevented from entering through that attempt. A person may also attempt to cross more than once. Therefore, cumulative border interceptions cannot simply be added to the resident migrant population. Once again, a real number is being used to support something it does not measure. Hear her out.
There was also a call by the former Statistician-General that there's about 15 to 30 million illegal immigrants in the country.
We searched for the original statement. We could not locate an authenticated Stats SA report, demographic model, or direct statement from a former South African Statistician-General estimating 15 to 30 million undocumented migrants in South Africa. Stats SA's official position is the opposite. It says it has not produced an estimate of South Africa's undocumented migrant population, but the exact range of 15 to 30 million does appear in a major report. It appears in the United Nations Development Programme's 1994 Human Development Report, and it referred to the estimated number of irregular international migrants across the entire world at that time, not South Africa. We cannot establish that this 1994 global estimate is the source used by Jacinta, her organisation, or the person she attributes the claim to. That connection would require evidence we do not have. But the discovery shows why original sourcing matters. A number can survive for decades. It can lose its date. It can lose its geography. And it can eventually be repeated as evidence for something entirely different. A claim involving as many as 30 million people requires an original source, a date, and a transparent methodology. None was supplied in the interview, but hear what Jacinta says.
These people live in our communities, so we know who they are, and the number is definitely not 3 million.
This may be the most important part of the argument to understand. Migration is not distributed evenly across South Africa. Some neighbourhoods, workplaces and business districts may experience concentrations far above the national average. A person can encounter migrants every day and sincerely conclude that a national figure of 3 million must be impossible. That lived experience should not be mocked or dismissed, but it cannot automatically be projected onto the whole country. A migrant may appear in accommodation records, workplace records, clinic records and several community submissions. Without deduplication, one person can become several data points. Documented migrants, refugees, asylum seekers, permanent residents and undocumented migrants can also be collapsed into one category. National statistics can understate what one community experiences locally. Local experience can also exaggerate what is happening nationally. Both errors are possible at the same time. Hear Jacinta here.
A lot of employers have been getting away with it. So currently we're seeing a lot of them facing the will of the people, and they have no choice but to abide by the laws of the country, because they can't be labeling us as lawless people, for example, for wanting the laws to be enforced. So we're seeing a lot of South Africans getting employed. Obviously, it's not enough.
This is why the dispute is not merely academic. Population estimates influence how people understand unemployment, hospitals, schools, housing, and crime. They shape whether citizens believe government has lost control, and they can determine whether public anger is directed at institutions or at individual workers and business owners. In our previous investigation, we examined what happens when private citizens begin exercising powers that legally belong to the state. This video reveals the data vacuum beneath that confrontation. When government does not publish information that the public can easily understand and trust, unsupported estimates gain political power. That does not excuse unlawful intimidation. It explains why clear and credible statistics are part of public safety. Listen to Jacinta.
Our government has, as I said, made promises, but to date, we haven't seen those promises yield any results, or we don't see a potential of them yielding results at that, because the things that they have suggested are possible, but there is no means for them to happen, because we want a border gate, for example.
The claim that government has produced no results is too broad. South Africa has expanded border enforcement, revised migration policy, and attempted to modernise home affairs systems. But Jacinta is on stronger ground when she challenges the quality of government information. The public is confronted with census estimates, survey estimates, asylum records, refugee records, inactive permits, border interceptions, deportation numbers, and lawful traveller movements. Each measures something different. Government often releases the figures separately and expects the public to understand how they fit together. That communication failure creates a trust failure. See how Jacinta reacts to that.
We don't have a mere border gate in the country.
Wow.
And on top of that, there's other neighboring countries who are having economic collapses from all the way from 2008. So all their citizens are just comfortable to just walk in, cross the river and come here and start life. Citizens end up collapsing their own countries to come to ours, and it can't be a workable and sustainable model.
This is a stronger policy argument than the claim of 30 million. Migration pressure does not begin only at South Africa's border. It is also driven by unemployment, political instability, conflict, persecution, and limited opportunity elsewhere in the region. South African government and Stats SA migration documents recognise these wider forces. South Africa can strengthen border management, But counting, raids and deportations cannot permanently solve the political and economic conditions that cause people to move. The country needs effective domestic administration. The region also needs governments capable of creating security, rights and economic opportunity for their own citizens. So, who is right? Jacinta Ngobese-Zuma is right that South Africa does not know the exact number of undocumented migrants. She is right that inactive asylum records, border pressure, and administrative weaknesses create legitimate public concern. She is also right that instability elsewhere in the region places additional pressure on South Africa. But the evidence presented in this interview does not establish a population of 15 to 30 million undocumented migrants. The 3 million figure is not a count of documented migrants alone. The million-plus asylum total combines active, inactive, recognized and closed records. The claim of more than 400,000 border interceptions in one season is contradicted by the official seasonal figures, and no authenticated South African statistical model has been produced for the range of 15 to 30 million. The most defensible conclusion is this: South Africa has a serious migration management and data confidence problem. But uncertainty about the exact undocumented population does not validate an estimate of 15 to 30 million. Government should not use statistical complexity to dismiss legitimate public concerns. Political movements should not use government failure as permission to present an unverified figure as established fact. 3 million and 30 million cannot both describe the same statistical reality. The reason the larger claim survives is that the government has failed to produce information the public consistently understands and trusts. South Africa now needs one transparent migration dashboard. It should clearly separate the estimated immigrant population active asylum cases, recognized refugees inactive and expired permits, lawful entries and departures, border interceptions, deportations, and the methodology used for every estimate. Until those categories are separated, South Africans will continue arguing with numbers that seem to contradict each other because they were never measuring the same thing. Which is the more serious failure? That government cannot provide an exact undocumented estimate, or that public figures are presenting unsupported numbers as fact. Keep the discussion focused on evidence. A person's nationality is not proof of their immigration status. This is the South Africa file. And when public frustration turns into private immigration enforcement, what does South African law permit? Watch our investigation into whether the law Ramaphosa described is actually being enforced.